we've covered some of this stuff on the episodes about the Koch brothers. We did those episodes on Teal with Noah Colwyn. And we talked about a lot of the kind of like underlying ideology and history of a lot of these things. But there's still more to talk about, because I think one of the big themes that comes up with these guys is this idea of like exit.
Yes.
Of like wanting to leave the world. You hear it even from people like Elon Musk, like, oh, let's go to Mars, let's do this. We can just like, even fucking Sam Bankman, Sam Jailman Jail.
There you go.
And Gabriel Jailman Jail, brother of Sam Jailman Jail. Their idea of just like, oh, we got to make the bunker. We got to basically leave society.
Leave society, yeah.
And that seems to be like a dream that kind of like all of these freaks share.
Yeah.
This idea that you can just like, oh, you just start over, go somewhere else, start over, right? Which is like, and with it, leave all responsibility behind.
Yeah.
Whether that's of sort of like dream of starting a new society or literally of like not having any kind of shared responsibility to society, it's all fucking baby brained. I'm sorry, it's so fucking childish. And what it to me, it feels like all of these kind of people think that they can just sort of bend reality to their will.
Yeah.
And they can't.
Yeah, it's interesting, the issue of like sovereignty, right? And like, I mean, a lot of it too is kind of just a sort of slightly different version of Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the idea that like we
Which
can
I've
all
never
just,
read.
Yeah, I've never read it either, but I get the point. It's like I listen. There's only so many hours you have in this world, right?
I like good writers.
Yeah, but this idea that like if you like you can exit and leave, and so there's this sort of like thinking that like maybe my talent is so great that it needs to be unbound from the confines of the law and of my current geographic coordinates, right? And that I need to start a new society out there. But the problem with these people don't understand is that you can't actually do that. This is the reason. So, I mean, what we have here are like projects that are essentially devoted to land steading, right? The previous ideas about seasteading was that you could create a new country really outside of the any nation's borders. And you could create your own laws from scratch, right? There's nobody to interfere with that. The problem with something like Prospera is like you're in someone else's country right now, and there are laws there. And even if, whatever, you technically follow the letter of the law, at the end of the day, sovereignty, it comes from a gun, right? And it comes from who has the most guns and the most will to use it. And I'm not getting an armed standoff, Bundy Ranch style with the Honduran government here, but you can have all of these sort of like highfalutin ideas about what the sovereignty is, and you can make sort of arty videos to appeal to 24-year-old autofiction fans in the lower side of New York. But when the rubber meets the road, there are it's not how it works. It's a science fiction fantasy.
I think the thing that I really resent about all of this stuff too is that they kind of present everything in this very plain spoken gee whiz simple language of oh, when you think about it, it's all simple. You just opt in.
Yeah.
And really, shouldn't it just be like this? You can just, well, if you don't like it, you just leave, and you kind of put it all together and you think about it for 2 fucking seconds. If you're not, again, if you're not a fucking child, you think about it for 2 seconds and it all fucking falls apart. It's just a logical jumble of nonsense. You cannot just leave. You can't leave. Everywhere, it sounds, whatever. Everywhere you go, there you are.
Yeah.
But not just you, everyone else.
Yeah.
The universe is immanent, right?
Yeah.
You cannot, everywhere you go, you are still there. It's all inside. There is no outside. You cannot leave. I'm sorry, you have to stay and make it better with everyone else. You can't leave. It is this fucking Neverland baby brain, child brain logic.
Well, you see this too with even people on the left, right? I mean, this is actually, I would say this is a mindset that really defies political borders. Because I have seen the same sort of thing occur, especially with like anarchist types, which I guess are their own form of libertarian, but like, you know, people who think that they can sort of opt out of capitalism, or, I mean, I guess these people are trying to opt into a deeper capitalism, but who can adjust their relationship with it while still like remaining within the folds of it, right? Because even if you have your fucking special economic zone in Honduras, like you're still within the global system, and really you are also within Honduras' system. But I've seen this happen here with people who like, you know, I can live in my free way on my own. Like maybe you can do that as an individual and flee to the woods, which is actually what happened to really one of the grandfathers of the sort of the charter city movement, or of the progenitor to the charter city movement. The guy ended up kind of giving up on the ideas and like literally absconding to the motherfucking forest. Now I'm using absconding, and like living there on his own, because that is the only thing that you can do. Like you got to go live in, and even then some park ranger falls upon you, or like, you know, comes upon you, your shit's done there.
Or
right?
God forbid a tree falls on you and suddenly you need help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's fantasy, it's science fiction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what it is. I mean, you say childish, but I think it is. It's. I would say it's more. I don't know what the distinction necessarily would be, but I guess it seems right to me, more juvenile than childish, right? Yeah. Because it's got this like very sort of like early teenage idea of what you can do, and like this
and how the world works.
And how the world works, yeah. You can't opt out. I'm sorry.
No.
Like you can't opt out. You can't opt out. Personally, if I was to opt out, I probably wouldn't do it at the advice of a World Bank guy, but you know, that's just me. It's nuts. I mean, I think that the Honduras experiment is an interesting one, because I think it's the furthest that any of these have gotten, both in terms of legality and in terms of actually building something. And we're actually seeing what happens now when there is real conflict about that, because most of these things have, not gotten very far off the ground or into the sea. I'm interested to see how the court rules, and I'm interested to see what the Honduran government does about it.
Well, I guess we're probably going to do another episodes on these guys, because I think there's more to say. It's funny. I was talking about this the other night, and I was saying, like, I think, the juvenile distinction is, I think you're right, and I agree. And if I could go rewind every time I said it was childish, find replace for juvenile, and I agree with you, Brace. But I would also say that it's like extremely antisocial.
Yeah.
All of this stuff is just very antisocial, and it doesn't get called that enough, I think. And I think it would be good for everyone to kind of remind how kind of antisocial all of this thinking is. But also, like, the US is already so much like this shit. Like, I was trying to think, I was like, is there a more fucking libertarian country than the United States? No. Like, just think, even in South America, right? Even in all of the, take Brazil, right? Even with how much its healthcare system has been hollowed out, how much its university system has been hollowed out, how much its regulatory system has been hollowed out, right? And not just from Bolsonaro, like even before that, right? Mm-hmm. It still has a less frayed social fabric than the United States.
Yeah.
Like, the United States health insurance system is fucking crazy. Like, the amount that we're all left on our own in, like, here is completely psychotic. And it's even more psychotic when I think that then there's people who think it should be even further. It's like they don't realize they're already living in the disaster that they want to create. So they think that they have to go further and further, not realizing that they're just going to make everything fucking more, like, insane.
Well, this is crony capitalism, Liz.